What would you do if you caught your husband with your best friend? When I experienced such betrayal in my 7-year marriage in Dallas, Texas, instead of acting emotionally, I thought strategically. The result? They both realized they had made the biggest mistake of their lives. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and if you've ever experienced betrayal from someone close to you, don't forget to hit that like button. The ending of this story will show you how real revenge is taken and why patience is the most powerful weapon. My name is Sarah. I'm 34 years old and I work as a marketing director for a major tech company in Dallas, Texas. 7 years ago, I married David in what everyone called the perfect Texas wedding at the Four Seasons Resort in Irving. Everything seemed perfect back then. David was 36, a successful architect specializing in luxury homes throughout the Dallas-Fort Worth metroplex, and we had built what looked like an ideal life together. We lived in a stunning 2-bedroom apartment in uptown Dallas with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Clyde Warren Park. Both of us were earning 6-figure salaries. I was pulling in $95,000 annually while David made around $120,000 from his architectural firm. We drove nice cars, mine a white BMW and his a black Mercedes, and we were planning for a future that seemed bright and secure. David's architectural firm was thriving, designing custom homes for wealthy clients in prestigious neighborhoods like Highland Park, University Park, and Preston Hollow. I was climbing the corporate ladder at my marketing firm, managing major campaigns for Fortune 500 companies based in the Dallas area. My best friend Lisa Rodriguez and I had been inseparable for 15 years, ever since we met as freshmen at the University of Texas at Austin. We'd weathered college heartbreaks together, celebrated each other's graduations, and supported each other through every major life transition. She was my maid of honor at my wedding, wearing a beautiful lavender dress that complemented the spring theme perfectly. I was hers when she married her college boyfriend Tom 2 years after graduation, though that marriage only lasted 18 months before ending in a messy divorce. Lisa was 32, a talented beauty specialist who owned a successful salon in Deep Ellum called Radiance Beauty Studio. She specialized in high-end treatments for Dallas socialites and had built quite a reputation among the wives of professional athletes, politicians, and business executives. Her salon was always booked solid, especially during wedding season and major social events. After her divorce from Tom, she threw herself completely into her business, often working 12-hour days and weekends to build her client base. "You're so lucky, Sarah," she would often tell me during our weekly coffee dates at a cute cafe near White Rock Lake. "Finding a man like David who actually appreciates you and treats you well isn't easy in this city. Hold on to him tight." The first 3 years of my marriage to David were like living in a romantic movie. He would surprise me with weekend trips to Austin for South by Southwest, romantic dinners at the nicest restaurants in Dallas like Ficini or Albernat's, and thoughtful gifts that showed he really listened when I talked about my dreams and interests. We would spend Saturday mornings at the farmers market in Deep Ellum, picking out fresh flowers and artisanal bread, then Sunday afternoons exploring new neighborhoods like Bishop Arts District or Knox Henderson, and evenings planning our dream house that David would design and build for us someday in one of Dallas's exclusive suburbs. Lisa was woven into the fabric of our life together in ways that seemed natural and healthy. She lived only 20 minutes away in a cute craftsman house near White Rock Lake that she'd bought after her divorce, and we maintained our tradition of girls' nights every Thursday, complete with wine, takeout from our favorite Thai restaurant, and hours of conversation about everything from work drama to relationship dynamics to our shared memories from college days in Austin. David genuinely liked Lisa, which made me happy since some of my previous boyfriends had found her too dramatic or attention-seeking. She could be a lot sometimes, loud, opinionated, and prone to making everything about herself. But she was also loyal, generous, and incredibly supportive when life got tough. "Lisa's got good energy," David would say after she'd leave our apartment following one of our dinner parties where we'd invite other couples from our social circle. "She's a real friend, not like those fake Dallas social climbers you meet at networking events who only care about what you can do for them." Lisa seemed to adore David too, always commenting on how thoughtful he was, how he always remembered to ask about her business or her family back in San Antonio. She would post photos of the three of us on Instagram with captions like, "My favorite couple," and "relationship goals right here," whenever we went to Rangers games at Globe Life Park or barbecue festivals around the Dallas area. "David's such a catch," she'd tell me privately. He's handsome, successful, and he actually listens when you talk. Most men in Dallas are either broke wannabes or rich jerks who think money replaces personality. But looking back now with the clarity that only comes after betrayal, I can see the warning signs that I missed at the time. The seeds of destruction that were being planted even during those happy early years. The changes started slowly about 3 years into our marriage, so gradually that I almost didn't notice at first. David began working later and later, claiming that his firm had landed several large projects in affluent suburbs like South Lake, Plano, and Frisco that required extensive evening meetings with wealthy clients who could only meet after their own demanding work schedules. These North Dallas clients are demanding, he'd explain when I complained about him missing our dinner plans or date nights. They want to micromanage every detail of their custom homes, and they expect their architect to be available whenever they have questions or want to make changes. But Sarah, one single commission from these people can cover our expenses for 3 or 4 months. The money is just too good to pass up. Texas real estate was indeed booming during this period, with wealthy families from California and New York relocating to Dallas for the lower taxes and cost of living. David's explanation seemed logical, even if it was frustrating for our relationship. His phone habits changed dramatically too. David had always been casual about his phone, often leaving it on the kitchen counter while he showered or asking me to check his messages while he was driving us somewhere. We'd always had complete transparency with our devices. I knew his passcode, he knew mine, and we'd use each other's phones interchangeably for navigation, music, or quick internet searches without thinking twice about it. Suddenly, his phone was constantly in his hand and he'd angle the screen away from me when typing messages or checking notifications. When I asked about it casually, he'd say it was sensitive client information that required confidentiality due to attorney-client privilege and non-disclosure agreements. These wealthy clients are paranoid about privacy, he explained. They don't want their personal information, property details, or financial discussions shared with anyone, even spouses. I had to sign NDAs for most of these projects that specifically prohibit me from discussing details with family members. The explanation seemed reasonable, but it felt different. There was a secrecy to his phone behavior that hadn't existed before, a deliberate hiding that made me uncomfortable even though I couldn't articulate exactly why. The romantic gestures that had defined our early marriage began to feel forced and guilt-driven. He'd come home late with expensive flowers from a high-end florist or surprise me with jewelry that felt more like an apology than a spontaneous expression of love. When I'd ask about his day, his answers became vague and rehearsed, lacking the specific details and enthusiasm he used to share about his work. "How was the meeting with the South Lake clients?" I'd ask. "Fine, just going over blueprints and material selections." "Nothing too exciting," he'd respond while avoiding eye contact and immediately changing the subject. During this same period, Lisa's behavior toward me began shifting in subtle ways that I initially attributed to the stress of running her own business. Our Thursday night tradition continued, but she seemed increasingly distracted, often checking her phone throughout our conversations or steering discussions away from my marriage concerns. "You're being paranoid, Sarah," she'd say whenever I mentioned David's late nights or changed behavior. "Successful men work hard. That's how they become successful in the first place. You should be proud that he's so dedicated to providing for your future instead of questioning his every move." When I mentioned that David seemed distant or preoccupied during the time we did spend together, Lisa would immediately jump to his defense with explanations that seemed designed to make me question my own perceptions. "Marriage isn't like dating, honey," she'd say while sipping her wine and scrolling through her phone. "The honeymoon phase ends and real life begins. David's probably just stressed about work and trying to advance his career. Men compartmentalize differently than women do. Cut him some slack and focus on being supportive instead of suspicious." Her advice always seemed designed to make me doubt my own instincts rather than address my legitimate concerns about the changes in my husband's behavior. Looking back now, I realize she was systematically gaslighting me, using our close friendship and my trust in her judgment to manipulate my perceptions and keep me from investigating further. The first concrete red flag appeared 6 months ago during what should have been a routine evening of doing household chores. I was sorting through laundry, preparing to take David's work clothes to the dry cleaner, when I found a restaurant receipt in his pants pocket. It was from Mirabelle, one of Dallas's most romantic and expensive restaurants in the Arts District, known for its intimate atmosphere and $200 per person prix fixe menu. The receipt was for dinner for two, including a $150 bottle of Bordeaux and dessert, bringing the total to over $400. It was dated from the previous Tuesday, a night when David had told me he was working late on blueprints for a new project in Plano and would grab something quick from the office break room or maybe a sandwich from the deli downstairs. I remembered that Tuesday clearly because I had offered to bring him dinner at the office, but he'd declined, saying he was too busy to take a proper break and would just eat something fast while working. He'd even called me around 9 p.m., right around the time the receipt was stamped, saying he was exhausted from staring at blueprints all day and looking forward to coming home to me. I stared at that receipt for almost an hour, sitting on our bed with laundry scattered around me, my mind racing through possible explanations. Maybe it was a business dinner with a client that he'd forgotten to mention. Maybe he was planning to surprise me for our upcoming anniversary and had been scouting venues with a wedding planner or restaurant consultant. Maybe there was an innocent explanation I wasn't seeing, and I was letting my imagination run wild. But my gut told me otherwise. The restaurant choice was too romantic, too intimate for a business meeting. The timing conflicted directly with what he'd told me about his evening. And something about finding it hidden in his pocket rather than openly discussed felt deliberately deceptive. Instead of confronting David immediately with accusations I couldn't prove, I decided to pay attention. Really pay attention. I started noting inconsistencies in his stories, memorizing details of his supposed work schedule, and observing his behavior patterns with the analytical skills I used in my marketing career. The evidence began accumulating quickly once I knew what to look for. David claimed to be working late every Tuesday and Thursday, staying at the office until 9 or 10 p.m. to accommodate client schedules and project deadlines. These were the exact same nights that Lisa had started canceling our girls' nights, claiming she had difficult clients who could only come in after normal business hours or family obligations that required her attention. "My cousin's having marriage problems and needs someone to talk to," she'd text on Thursday afternoons. "Rain check on tonight?" Or, "Mrs. Henderson wants a last-minute color touch-up before her charity gala tomorrow. You know how these society ladies are. When they want something, they want it immediately." The excuses were always plausible, but the timing was suspiciously consistent. I noticed David had started wearing cologne daily, even for supposedly mundane work meetings with contractors or suppliers. He'd always been well-groomed and professional, but this felt different. More intentional, more seductive. He was wearing Creed Aventus, an expensive fragrance that cost $300 a bottle and wasn't something you'd wear to look at blueprints in a dusty construction trailer. His gym routine changed dramatically too. David had always been reasonably fit, going to our local gym 2 or 3 times a week for basic cardio and weight training. Suddenly he was hitting the gym 5 days a week, hiring a personal trainer, and buying expensive workout clothes from Lululemon and Under Armour. His body began changing noticeably, more muscular, leaner, more defined. When I complimented his improved physique, he'd deflect the praise or change the subject rather than accepting it with the pride you'd expect from someone working hard to get in shape. "Just trying to stay healthy," he'd mumble when I mentioned how good he looked in his new fitted shirts. Most tellingly, his laptop and phone behavior became increasingly secretive and paranoid. He'd close his laptop screen whenever I entered his home office, even if he was just checking email or looking at architectural websites. He started taking phone calls in his car or on our apartment balcony, even when I was wearing headphones or clearly busy with my own work and couldn't overhear his conversations. When I asked about this new behavior, he'd say it was about client confidentiality and professional boundaries, but it felt like something more than that. It felt like active concealment. 3 months ago, I decided to do some real detective work instead of just passively observing and worrying. I knew David's phone passcode because we'd always been completely open about our devices. We used each other's phones interchangeably for navigation when driving, music selection during workouts, or quick internet searches when our own phones were charging or out of reach. Complete transparency had been a foundational element of our relationship from the beginning. But when I tried to check his messages one morning while he was in the shower, not out of suspicion, but just to see if he'd received a response from our mortgage broker about refinancing, I discovered he'd changed his passcode without mentioning it. That seemingly small change felt like a massive violation of the trust and openness we'd always maintained. Why would someone change their phone passcode without telling their spouse unless they had something to hide? That night, while David slept beside me, I watched him unlock his phone to check something, pretending to be asleep while memorizing the pattern of his finger movements. He'd changed the code to 03144, 4 digits that I racked my brain trying to understand the significance of. It wasn't our anniversary, which was September 12th. It wasn't my birthday, which was July 8th. It wasn't his birthday, his parents' anniversary, or any family milestone I could recall. It wasn't related to our apartment lease, our jobs, or any other significant date in our shared life. Then, lying there in the dark with a growing sense of dread, it hit me like a physical blow. March 14th, 0314. Lisa's birthday. My husband had changed his phone passcode to my best friend's birthday. The realization was so shocking, so fundamentally wrong, that I almost convinced myself I was imagining connections that didn't exist. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe he'd chosen random numbers. Maybe I was becoming paranoid and irrational, seeing patterns where none existed. But deep down I knew. The pieces were falling into place in a way that made horrible, perfect sense. The next morning, while David was in his usual long shower, I acted on an impulse that would change everything. I installed a discreet monitoring app on his phone called M-Spy that I'd researched online. I'm in marketing, so I'm fairly tech-savvy, and the app was designed to be completely invisible to the user while providing access to texts, calls, location data, and even deleted messages. The installation took less than 3 minutes, and I felt simultaneously guilty about violating his privacy and justified in protecting myself from whatever he was hiding. What I discovered over the next 2 weeks didn't just destroy my world. It obliterated every assumption I'd made about the two people I trusted most in my life. David and Lisa had been having an affair for 8 months. 8 months of systematic lies, elaborate deceptions, and emotional manipulation while I trusted them both completely and never suspected a thing. Their text message conversations were a comprehensive catalog of their betrayal. Sarah's working late on that IBM campaign tonight. Come over at 7 and I'll cook for you. I feel terrible lying to her every day, but I can't stop thinking about you when we're apart. She asked why I've been canceling girls' nights. I told her I've been busy with difficult clients. We need to be more careful. She's starting to notice that I'm distant. When are you going to tell her about us? I'm tired of sneaking around like teenagers. Soon. I just need to figure out the right way to do it without destroying her completely. But the messages that hurt most deeply were Lisa's comments about me, her supposed best friend. Sarah's become so clingy and suspicious lately. It's exhausting being around her constant anxiety. She's always complaining about something: work, her weight, money, her family. No wonder you're unhappy at home. Once we're together officially, you'll see how much better life can be with someone who actually appreciates what they have. She doesn't deserve someone like you, David. You're wasted on her. They had been meeting at Lisa's house every Tuesday and Thursday evening while I sat alone in our apartment, trusting both of them completely. They'd been having romantic dinners at expensive restaurants throughout Dallas while I made myself simple meals and wondered why my husband seemed so distant. They'd even taken a weekend trip to Austin together, telling me they were attending separate work conferences, while I spent the weekend missing David and texting Lisa about how lonely I felt without my husband. The betrayal was comprehensive, calculated, and cruel. They hadn't just fallen into an affair. They'd constructed an elaborate web of lies that involved both of them actively deceiving me every single day for 8 months while pretending to care about my well-being. But the worst part was discovering how they talked about me. Reading their messages, I saw myself through their eyes. A clingy, suspicious, complaining wife who didn't appreciate her husband and a needy friend who couldn't take a hint that she wasn't wanted. The emotional devastation was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. It wasn't just the loss of my marriage. It was the complete destruction of my reality. The two people I trusted most in the world had been systematically betraying me while making me feel crazy for noticing that something was wrong. But instead of confronting them immediately in a burst of emotional devastation, I made a decision that would define everything that came next. I was going to be strategic. I spent 2 more weeks documenting everything with the methodical precision I used in my most important marketing campaigns. I took screenshots of their messages, organized them chronologically to show the progression of their relationship, and saved location data that proved they were together when they claimed to be working or with other people. I also gathered financial evidence of David's spending on their relationship. Credit card statements showing expensive dinners, hotel rooms for weekend getaways, jewelry purchases that I'd never received, and spa treatments that Lisa was clearly enjoying while claiming to be too busy for our friendship. The paper trail painted a picture of a man who was investing heavily in a relationship with another woman while maintaining the facade of a committed marriage with me. I started paying closer attention to their behavior when the three of us were together, and the signs I'd been missing became glaringly obvious. The subtle looks they'd exchange when they thought I wasn't watching. The way Lisa would find excuses to touch David's arm while talking. How they'd both check their phones at exactly the same time, clearly responding to messages from each other. The inside jokes and shared references that I wasn't part of. The signs had been there all along. I'd just been too trusting, too secure in my relationships to see them. Then I devised my plan for the perfect confrontation. I told David I was going to visit my college roommate Jessica in Houston for a girls' weekend. I booked a hotel room, created an elaborate backstory about wedding planning activities and spa appointments, and even posted fake location updates on social media to sell the deception. Instead, I stayed in Dallas and hired a private investigator recommended by a divorce attorney I'd quietly consulted. I wanted photographic documentation that couldn't be dismissed, explained away, or denied. That Saturday morning, I kissed David goodbye, told him I'd miss him, and pretended to drive to Houston. Instead, I parked in a garage downtown and met the private investigator, a former police detective named Marcus who specialized in infidelity cases. Most people want to confront immediately when they find evidence, Marcus told me as we reviewed the plan. But smart people document everything first. You're doing this the right way. From my hotel room, I watched through the investigator's live camera feed as Lisa arrived at our apartment at 10 a.m., using the spare key I'd given her years ago for emergencies. She was carrying an overnight bag and groceries, clearly planning to spend the entire weekend playing house with my husband in my home. They spent Saturday like a couple, cooking breakfast together in my kitchen, watching movies on my couch, taking a shower together in my bathroom. The intimacy and comfort between them was obvious and devastating. This wasn't a new affair or a moment of weakness. They were acting like a couple who'd been together for months, completely comfortable with each other in a way that spoke to deep emotional and physical intimacy. The photos Marcus took throughout the weekend were professionally shot and undeniably clear. David and Lisa shopping for groceries together at Whole Foods, holding hands while walking through Clyde Warren Park, kissing passionately outside a movie theater in Deep Ellum, and entering various restaurants and hotels together. They looked happy together. Genuinely, radiantly happy in a way that made their betrayal even more devastating. This wasn't just physical attraction or a momentary lapse in judgment. They were in love with each other, building a real relationship while systematically lying to me about it. But I wasn't planning to be a victim. I was planning to take complete control of the situation. Sunday evening, I returned from Houston with a carefully crafted story about Jessica's wedding planning drama and the relaxing spa treatments we'd supposedly enjoyed together. David was home, acting like the devoted husband, asking about my weekend and telling me he'd missed me terribly. "How was your weekend?" I asked, already knowing exactly how he'd spent every hour. "Boring," he said, not meeting my eyes. "I just worked on some blueprints and watched baseball." "I missed you." The ease with which he lied to my face was almost impressive in its callousness. I played along perfectly, sharing fabricated stories about my fake weekend while internally preparing for what would come next. I was calm, strategic, and completely in control of my emotions for the first time since discovering their affair. Monday morning, I took a personal day from work and spent 8 hours preparing the most important presentation of my life. I organized every piece of evidence chronologically, created clear timelines of their deception, and prepared responses to every excuse or justification they might attempt. I researched divorce attorneys, opened my own bank account, and documented all our shared assets and debts. By Monday evening, I was ready. I cooked David's favorite meal, chicken fried steak with cream gravy, mashed potatoes, and green beans, a classic Texas comfort food dinner that his mother had taught me to make during our second year of marriage. I set the table with our wedding china, lit candles, and opened a bottle of the expensive wine we'd been saving for a special occasion. To David, it probably looked like I was trying to reconnect romantically after a weekend apart, maybe planning to discuss starting a family or taking a vacation together. "This is really nice, Sarah," he said, settling into his chair with obvious relief. He'd been tense and distracted all day, probably worried about covering his tracks from the weekend. I feel like we haven't had quality time together in forever. I know, I replied, refilling his wine glass with a steady hand. That's actually what I wanted to talk about tonight. Our relationship, our future, and making sure we're being completely honest with each other. After dinner, I suggested we move to the living room for a serious conversation about where our marriage was heading. David looked nervous but agreed, probably thinking I was going to bring up marriage counseling, planning a vacation to reconnect, or maybe starting the family we'd been discussing for years. Instead, I opened my laptop and started the PowerPoint presentation that would end my marriage and destroy 2 lives that had been built on lies. I've prepared something to show you, I said calmly, clicking to the first slide. Slide 1, David and Lisa. A love story. The color drained from David's face so quickly I thought he might faint. Sarah, wait, I can explain, he started, his voice cracking with panic. Don't interrupt, I said firmly, maintaining eye contact. This presentation has 12 slides and you're going to watch every single one without saying a word. Then you can talk. Slide 2. Screenshots of their most damning text messages, organized by date to show the progression from flirtation to full affair. Slide 3. Financial records showing David's secret spending on Lisa. Expensive dinners, hotel rooms, jewelry, weekend trips, and spa treatments. Slide 4. Location data proving they were together during times when they told me they were working or busy with other obligations. Slide 5. Photos from the weekend surveillance, showing them acting like a couple in public throughout Dallas. Slide 6. A detailed timeline of lies they'd both told me, cross-referenced with evidence of what they were actually doing. Slide 7. Screenshots of Lisa's manipulative messages where she badmouthed me and encouraged David to leave me. Slide 8. Evidence of how long they'd been planning this deception, including discussions about when and how to tell me. Slide 9. Financial analysis showing how much money David had spent on their relationship. Over $15,000 in 8 months. Slide 10. A breakdown of every lie David had told me in the past 8 months, with corresponding proof of the truth. Slide 11. Legal documentation I'd already prepared, divorce papers, asset division proposals, and a timeline for him to move out. Slide 12. Any questions? David tried to interrupt several times throughout the presentation, but I held up my hand each time, maintaining complete control of the situation. By the time I reached the final slide, he was visibly shaking, his face pale and his hands trembling. Now you can talk, I said, closing the laptop and looking directly at the man I'd been married to for 7 years. Sarah, I'm so sorry, he began, his voice barely above a whisper. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Lisa and we just connected over time and things got complicated, but I never meant to hurt you. I was going to tell you, I just didn't know how. 8 months, David, I replied evenly. This wasn't a moment of weakness or a single mistake. This was a calculated betrayal that involved lying to me every single day for 8 months while making me feel crazy for noticing something was wrong. I know. But I love you, Sarah. Despite everything, I still love you. We can work this out. I'll end things with Lisa immediately. We can go to counseling. I'll do whatever you need me to do. It's too late for that, I said simply. At that moment, as if on cue, my phone rang. It was Lisa, calling at exactly the time I'd asked her to. Hi, Lisa, I answered, putting the call on speaker without asking David's permission. Perfect timing. David and I were just talking about you. Sarah. Lisa's voice came through the speaker, confusion evident in her tone. Is everything okay? You sound weird. Why did you ask me to call at 9:30? Why don't you come over? I suggested calmly. I think the 3 of us need to have a conversation. What kind of conversation? You're freaking me out. The kind where we stop pretending and start telling the truth. Can you be here in 20 minutes? I'll be right there. 20 minutes later, Lisa knocked on our apartment door. She entered with her usual bright smile, carrying a bottle of wine and acting like she was arriving for one of our normal social gatherings. What's this about? She asked, looking between David and me with growing concern. You both look so serious. Did something happen? Sit down, Lisa, I said, gesturing to the chair across from the couch where David and I were sitting. I have something to show you. I reopened my laptop and showed her a different presentation. One focused specifically on her role in the betrayal. Screenshots of her lies to me about her whereabouts, evidence of her manipulation tactics designed to keep me from suspecting the truth, and a compilation of every cruel thing she'd said about me to David. "This is crazy, Sarah," Lisa protested, her voice rising with each slide. "David and I are just friends. You're being paranoid and irrational. This is exactly the kind of behavior that's been pushing David away." "Lisa," I said quietly, "I have audio recordings of your phone calls too." That stopped her protests immediately. Her face went white as she realized the full extent of what I'd discovered. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued, looking at both of them with the calmest voice I'd ever used. "David, I'm filing for divorce tomorrow morning. I've already consulted with an attorney, and I don't want anything from you except for you to move out of this apartment immediately and never contact me again. Lisa, our 15-year friendship is over. I never want to see you again, and if you try to contact me, I'll get a restraining order." "But here's the interesting part," I continued, standing up to pace in front of them. "I'm not going to expose you publicly or try to ruin your lives out of spite. I'm going to let you have exactly what you wanted, each other." Both of them looked confused by this development. "The problem is," I said, settling back into my chair, "relationships built on lies, betrayal, and deception don't usually work out very well. You'll always wonder if the other person is capable of cheating again, since you both know how easily you betrayed someone who trusted you completely. You'll always remember that your relationship started by destroying an innocent person's marriage and friendship. Good luck building something healthy on that foundation." David tried desperately to salvage the situation, begging me to reconsider, promising to end things with Lisa immediately and commit completely to rebuilding our marriage. He cried, he pleaded, he made promises about counseling and transparency and earning back my trust. Lisa attempted a different approach, trying to salvage our friendship by claiming she'd been confused and manipulated by David, that she'd never meant for things to go so far, and that their relationship wasn't serious. "He told me you were unhappy," she said through crocodile tears. "He said you'd been talking about divorce anyway, and that he was just waiting for the right time to end things with you. Did he also tell you that he changed his phone passcode to your birthday?" I asked. The look of shock on her face answered that question. I wasn't interested in their excuses, their justifications, or their attempts to minimize what they'd done. The evidence spoke for itself, and their reaction to being caught told me everything I needed to know about their character. That night, David packed his essential belongings and moved to a hotel. Lisa left my apartment in tears, realizing that she'd lost not just her best friend but also her reputation in our social circle. The next morning, I filed for divorce and began the process of completely rebuilding my life from scratch. But my revenge was just beginning, and it would be far more devastating than either of them could have imagined. Within a week, David and Lisa's secret relationship became public knowledge throughout our social circle in Dallas. I didn't have to say anything or make any accusations. Their own behavior made everything obvious to everyone who knew us. When David moved in with Lisa immediately after leaving our apartment, people connected the dots. When they started appearing together at restaurants and social events where we'd all hung out as friends, the timeline became clear to everyone. The Dallas architecture community is smaller and more interconnected than you might think. Word traveled quickly through the professional networks about David's character issues and personal integrity problems. In a business built entirely on trust, long-term client relationships, and professional reputation, this kind of scandal can be career-destroying. Several of David's major clients began questioning whether someone who could lie to his wife for 8 months could be trusted with their million-dollar projects and confidential information. His business partnership became strained as his colleagues worried about guilt by association. Lisa's salon began losing clients too. Many of her customers were married women from affluent Dallas neighborhoods who didn't appreciate learning that their beautician had been sleeping with someone's husband while pretending to be her best friend. The violation of trust felt personal to them, and they began taking their business elsewhere. If she can betray her best friend, how do we know she won't gossip about our personal information or overcharge us when we're not paying attention? One former client posted in a local Facebook group. But the most satisfying part wasn't their professional consequences. It was watching their relationship implode under the weight of their guilt and the judgment of others. The affair had been exciting when it was secret, forbidden, and passionate. But once it became their official relationship, They quickly realized they didn't actually have much in common beyond sexual attraction and the thrill of deception. David had been attracted to Lisa because she seemed uncomplicated and fun compared to what he perceived as my increasing anxiety and suspicion. But once they were living together, he discovered that Lisa was actually high maintenance, expensive, and emotionally demanding in ways that made our marriage look peaceful by comparison. Lisa had been attracted to David because he seemed stable and financially secure compared to the unreliable men she usually dated. But once the novelty wore off, she realized that David was actually boring, controlling, and critical in ways that made her feel trapped and resentful. Within 3 months, they were fighting constantly. Within 6 months, they were both calling me separately, trying to reconcile. David called first, sobbing into the phone like a broken man. "I made the biggest mistake of my life, Sarah. Lisa isn't you. She doesn't understand me like you did. She doesn't support my dreams or care about building a real future together. I was stupid and selfish, and I threw away the best thing in my life for nothing." "You're right about one thing," I replied calmly. "You did throw away the best thing in your life. But it wasn't for nothing. It was for exactly what you thought you wanted. I hope it was worth it. Please, Sarah. Can we at least talk? Can we try counseling? I'll do anything to make this right." "David, there's nothing to make right. You made your choice very clearly over and over again for 8 months. Now you get to live with the consequences." Lisa tried to reconcile with me too, appearing at my new apartment uninvited one evening with flowers and a bottle of wine, acting like she was arriving for one of our old girls' nights. "Sarah, please," she said when I opened the door, tears already streaming down her face. "I know I messed up terribly, but we've been friends for 15 years. That has to count for something, right? Can't we work through this?" "Lisa, you didn't mess up," I replied, not inviting her inside. "You made a calculated decision to betray me for 8 months while pretending to be my best friend. Those are very different things." "I was confused and scared," she continued, desperation creeping into her voice. "David made me think you didn't appreciate him, that your marriage was already over. I thought I was helping him find happiness." "For 8 months?" I asked. "You thought you were helping him find happiness by having sex with him in my bed, using the spare key I gave you for emergencies?" She didn't have an answer for that. "And what about all those times you told me I was being paranoid when I suspected something was wrong? What about convincing me to ignore my instincts and trust my husband? Were you helping then too?" "I was trying to protect everyone," she said weakly. "No, Lisa. You were protecting yourself and your affair. There's a difference." I closed the door and never spoke to either of them again. Today, 18 months after discovering their betrayal, I'm living the happiest and most authentic life I've ever known. I moved to a beautiful apartment in the trendy Bishop Arts district of Dallas, got promoted to senior marketing director at my company with a $20,000 salary increase, and started dating someone new. His name is Michael, and he's a divorced father of 2 who understands the value of honesty, communication, and rebuilding trust after betrayal. We met at a divorce support group that I'd joined to process my experience, and our relationship has developed slowly and transparently. "What I love about you," Michael told me recently, "is that you know exactly who you are and what you're worth. You don't settle for less than you deserve." David and Lisa both left Dallas within a year of their relationship ending. David moved to Houston, where he's struggling to rebuild his professional reputation and client base. The Dallas architecture community has a long memory, and his personal scandals followed him throughout Texas. Lisa sold her salon at a significant loss and moved back to San Antonio to live with her parents while she figures out her next career move. The beauty industry in Dallas is surprisingly small and interconnected, and her reputation for betraying a close friend made it difficult for her to maintain professional relationships. I stayed in Dallas, surrounded by friends who supported me through the divorce and respected how I handled the situation with grace and strategic intelligence. My social circle expanded to include people who valued authenticity and loyalty over superficial charm and manipulation. The best part of my new life isn't just the absence of toxic people. It's the presence of genuine relationships built on mutual respect and honest communication. I've learned to trust my instincts, set clear boundaries, and never again ignore red flags because they're inconvenient or uncomfortable. 6 months ago, I started a blog called Strategic Revenge, where I share stories and advice for people dealing with betrayal and toxic relationships. The response has been overwhelming, with thousands of readers sharing their own experiences and supporting each other through difficult situations. The best revenge isn't destroying your enemies, I wrote in my most popular post. It's building a life so amazing that you're grateful they showed you their true colors before you wasted any more time on them. People often ask me how I stayed so calm and strategic during such a devastating betrayal instead of reacting emotionally like most people would. The answer is that I refused to let their betrayal define my character or dictate my actions. I could have screamed, thrown things, posted revenge videos on social media, or tried to destroy their lives in petty and vindictive ways. But that would have given them power over my behavior and turned me into someone I didn't want to be. Instead, I chose to respond with intelligence, dignity, and strategic planning. I gathered evidence, protected myself legally and financially, and forced them to face the natural consequences of their choices without needing to orchestrate additional punishment. The truth is, David and Lisa did me the biggest favor of my life. They showed me their true characters before I wasted any more years on either of them. They freed me to find people worthy of my love, trust, and friendship. They taught me valuable lessons about red flags, boundary setting, and the importance of trusting my own instincts. Most importantly, they proved that I'm stronger, smarter, and more resilient than I ever knew. The woman who discovered that betrayal is not the same woman who accepted it for months while doubting her own perceptions. I've become someone who values herself enough to walk away from people who don't deserve her. If you're watching this and dealing with betrayal from someone you love, remember these key points. Your response to their betrayal says more about your character than their betrayal says about yours. Choose to be strategic rather than emotional. Choose to protect yourself rather than seek petty revenge. Choose to build something better rather than waste energy destroying what's already broken. Document everything before you confront anyone. Gather evidence, consult professionals, and make plans before you act on emotion. The most powerful position is knowledge, and the most effective revenge is success. Don't try to change their minds or win them back. People who can betray you systematically for months while looking you in the eye are fundamentally different from you. Accept that difference and focus on protecting yourself rather than fixing them. Build a support system of people who share your values. The friends who stood by me during my divorce were the ones who understood that betrayal is about character, not circumstances. Surround yourself with people who would never put you in a position to question your own reality. Finally, remember that the best revenge is a life well lived. Focus your energy on becoming the best version of yourself rather than trying to punish people who have already demonstrated their inability to appreciate what they had. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have confronted them immediately with emotion? Or would you have gathered evidence and planned strategically like I did? How do you think people should handle discovering infidelity and betrayal from their closest relationships? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your story might help someone else who's going through something similar and feeling alone in their pain. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more true stories about overcoming betrayal, building resilience, and creating authentic relationships. Your support helps this channel reach others who might need to hear these messages about self-worth and strategic thinking. Remember, you deserve people in your life who would never make you question your own sanity or worth. The strongest response to betrayal isn't revenge. It's becoming someone who attracts loyalty instead of deception. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.